In the last lecture, we have discussed about two important data structure, that is vector and data frame. In this lecture, I'll be discussing about the another four data structures, that is list, matrices, vector and array. Okay, so what happened is that when we have discussed about vector, so this was a vector. Now this is a data frame. Okay, so in the data frame, if you see here, so this is a vector 1 and this is a vector 2. Okay, so data frame is a combination of vectors. Okay, now if you see, if we want to store the value, like say for example, so this is a vector 1 of number of publication and these are the author name. With this we want to store the value like total number of publication. So say for example, these are the number of publications are there and these are the author name are there and total number of publications, say for example 131. If we want to store this kind of data, we have to use another data structure that is known as list. Okay, so we'll see a practical example in our what exactly we get the error and then we come up that why we need exactly list. Okay, so let us assume that this is a vector researcher. Okay, so I have this vector. So another vector we have publication doc with the details 12, 14, 15, and then we have a another vector we store the two values only. Say for example, these two values are the matrix score of this particular authors. Okay, so if I will create this vector, it's created. So now if I create a data frame of these three vector, let us see what happen. So if I run this, so this is a command to create a data frame and these are the three different vectors are there. So if I run this, it says that there are different number of rows are there. So 3 and 2. So what exactly it means that, so in researcher there are 3 rows are there, in pubdoc there are 3 rows are there, but in mat score there are only 2 values. Okay, so that is why we need a another data structure which we call it as list. Okay, let us now take one more similar example. If in this case we have 4 values in researcher, so I am running this and here if I run this and now again if I go with this value, so in these two vector we have added one more value, but this mat score we have only 2 values. So if I run this, now if I create a data frame, it is created. Okay, so what happened here is, so in the earlier example when we were creating the data frame with the 3 values in the two of the vector and 2 values in another vector, the data frame was not created. Okay, but here the data frame is created. So what exactly did here, so we'll see the example here. So if you have noticed here that the mat score we have only 2 values, 2 and 3, but when we have created the data frame, it is automatically added these 2 values in the last 2 rows. Okay, but we don't want like this, we want only 2 and 3 for the particular data set. Okay, so that is why we need a another data structure which we call it as a list. Okay, so a list is a another powerful data structure that stores and manipulate heterogeneous data types. It is highly flexible data structure that can have multiple elements of different data types like numeric, character, logical, etc. Lists are helpful when we have to deal with data set that have numeric, character, logical or even more complex data structure. So let us first create some dummy list and then we will do all the different operations on those lists. So as we have already discussed, the vector is the key type. So to create a list, first we will create a vector and then from those vectors we will be creating a list. Okay, so say for example, this is a vector, research ID is a vector, I am creating like this. Then we have another vector researcher with these 3 researcher name. I am doing like this. And now if I say that these three author has total number of publication 131. So I am creating another object with the value 131. So if I run it, okay, these are the basic things we have created. Now we will create the list. Okay, so the basic syntax of creation of list and data frame is same. Okay, you have to call the function list, and inside the function you have to specify the name of the vector which you want to create the list. Okay, so for data frame, what we used to do, instead of list we used to write data dot frame, but here because we are creating the list, so we will use this list function. In this list function we have these three objects. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a list of these three objects. So if I run this here, my list is created. Okay, so this is the first element of my list, this is the second, and this is the third. Now I'll assign a name to this list. So yes, so this is my list is created, my list is published. So these are the values of published. Now we will see the names of each elements of a list. Okay, so if we have to see the names of each of the list, we will use this names function, and if I run this, null. So if you remember when we were creating the data frame, so as soon as we call the function data dot frame and we give the vector's name, so it automatically assign the column name also from taking the vector name. So but here it doesn't take automatically. Okay, we have to mention that these are the name of the elements. Okay, so if we see here, that is why this name function is showing the null value. So now we will add the name of the each element. How we will do that? So for that there are like two ways are there. One way is that when you are creating the list, at that time you explicitly mention that these are the element name of this list, or afterwards you can also add the names of the list. So first we will see that how we will be doing at the very beginning whenever we are creating the list. If I run this, so here these are the three object name: research id, researcher, and total pub, and I am giving the element name as id to research id, name to researcher, and total to total publication. So if I run this here again, and now if I check the values of this published, okay, and now if I run it again here, this function names, it's showing that these are the three element names are there, but earlier it was showing null. Okay, so whenever you are creating a list, you have to remember that you must mention the names of the each element. Okay, now let us assume that you forget to declare the element name in the starting. We can add later on also. Okay, so how we will add those names? We will be using the name function again, and in the name function we will be saying that these are the three element name you assign. Okay, so here instead of the same name, I am taking different name. Say for example, I say it as id idoc. Then instead of name, I say it as researcher, and then in the total, I say that tot POV. Okay. If I do like this, it is done. Now, if I check the values of this particular list, okay. So if you see here, the earlier name elements were ID, name, and total, but now the element names are idoc, researcher, and totpub. Okay. So this is how you can assign the names to the each element of a list. So after creating the list, you want to access the element of the that particular list. Okay. So to access the element of a list, we have to use the same symbol, that dollar symbol, what we have used in data frame. So we'll see in R how we can use the dollar symbol to access the element and to access the particular value of that element. Okay, so if I have to access the only name element, okay, how we will do? So we will first call the name of that list, then we will use the dollar sign, then we will mention the element name. Okay, so if I run it here like this, so why it is showing null here? So it is showing null because we don't have element name as name. Okay, because we have already changed here to researcher. So if I do here dollar, if I run it here like this, so it's researcher, it's not name is there. So first I'll just change the names of this list. So this is done. Now if I do dollar, name is there. Okay, and now if I run this, so these are the three authors are there in this list. Now if I have to access like this is the way you can also access the element, particular element. So the first element of the list is indexed at 1, then at the second, and that at the third location. Okay, if I do like this, publish 3, it will give me the total number of publication, which was the third element. But now if I say like this, so there is no fourth element. Okay, there is only 3 elements are there. That is why it is showing null here for this particular element. So you can access the element by either using the dollar and then you give the name of that particular element, or you can use the location of the element. Now say for example you want to access that particular value of that element. Okay, so for that what you will do? Dollar, like say for example you want to access the particular value, like in the name element you want to access only Mohit. Okay, so what you will do? You will do like this, and if you do like this Mohit is retrieved. Okay, accessing the element in the each list will be very helpful during the analysis. So you must practice on how we can access different elements and their corresponding values in a list. Okay, now say for example you have a list, and in that particular list you want to change the name of one of the element or either the some of the values of the list. Okay, so it's very easy. How we will do? So let us understand first that how we can update the list by this example. So what we are doing here is, so we have created a list which have the name, then we have a this total publication, and then we have here is ID. Okay, 1 2 3. Okay, see these are 131. Instead of locase you want to add another value, what you will do? You will just remove this and you will, like say for example you will add Tarun. Okay, so in the same way we can do in R also. So modifying a list in the R is very straightforward. So to modify or to update the value in particular element of a list, you have to first mention the location where you want to change the value of that element. For this particular example, we are changing the value of name element, and at third location instead of locase we want to replace this by Tarun. So if I run this like this, and now if I see this name element, so this Tarun is there. Earlier if you see here, earlier locase was there, so now it is updated. Now if you want to add the more value to the element, so how you will do? The same way as we have updated the value in the element. Say for example we want to add at the 5th location, so we will run this, and if I do like this, and now if I see the value of this, okay, so now Tarun is at third location also and at 5th location also. If you have noticed that it automatically assigned NA at the fourth location. So why it is added NA values here? Because we haven't declared the fourth location value. Okay. So our earlier list have only 3 values in this particular element, and then we have added directly at the fifth location. We have ignored the fourth location. So that is why it automatically added the NA here. So list is such a kind of flexible data structure where you can store the data frame and the vector in the same list. So let us now see how we will be creating the list where we will be storing the data frame and a vector. So this is our data frame we have already created. So if I do like this, so our list is created and I'll assign a name to this. And if I run this, so now my new list is having a data set, and in that particular data set it is also having the total publication also. Okay. So this is a dummy data set. Okay. So this is how we can store the data frame and a vector or another object in that particular list. Okay. Until now we have discussed a single list only. Okay. But we can store the multiple list also. Okay. In the same list. How we will do that? Now say for example we have a this particular list of institutional publication. So I am creating these 3 objects. So if I run this, this is a list 1. So list 1 is created, and now I have a data of the another institution, and I'll create these 3 objects, and I'll create a another list. Now to create a nested list or a single list, the function is same. Okay. Inside the function you have to give the details that whether these are the data frame or a vectors, or these are the list, these are the different list you want to combine it as a single list. Okay. So this is the same function, and now I am, instead of data frame or a vector or 2 different vectors, I am saying here that I want to create a list of these 2 institution list. So if I run this, and if I check the value, so now I have a single list which have 2 more lists inside it. So one is this list and the another is this list. Okay. So this kind of complex list we won't be using during the course, but it is very helpful in knowing that how a multiple list can also be stored in that list. Okay. So this is about the list. So now we will discuss the another data structure, that is a matrix. So matrix is a 2-dimensional data structure in R. It look like a data frame. So however, there is a difference between a matrix and data frame. So a matrices contain the element of the same atomic data type. Okay. So we'll see the example. So if we see our data frame is this, like name and author, publication. So this is a character and this is a numeric. Okay. But matrices is look like this. Okay. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the values in the matrix are of the same data type. Okay. Wherever if you see in the data frame, if you see it look like a matrix. If we see here, look like matrix like Raman, Mohit, Lokesh, then 12, 13, 14. So here this is character and this is numeric. Okay. So this is one of the difference between a data frame and a matrix. Okay. Understanding of matrix computation will help in doing data manipulation, principal component analysis, image processing and machine learning, etc. So we'll see how we can create the matrix in R. So to create the matrix in R, we have to use this function called matrix, and there we have to provide the values that what are the matrix we are creating. So let us first create a matrix in R. So say for example, this is a matrix. I am assigning my mat as a name, and these are the 8 values. Okay, if I do like this, and if I have to check the value, so this matrix is created. Okay, if you see here that it look like a vector kind of thing. Okay, so all the values are in the single column. Okay, but it is a kind of a matrix which have one column and there are 8 rows are there. Now if I check dimension of this my mat, I run this dim function. So it's showing 8 1. So 8 is the number of row and 1 is the number of column. Okay. So this particular matrix is like a kind of a vector which have 8 observations. Okay. Now if I check like the number of rows, the way we have checked for the data frame. So there are number of rows are 8, and the similar way we can check for column also. So for that we will be using ncol, and I'll so 1. So the number of rows are 8 and number of columns are 1. Now you want to create a matrix, but you want to specify the number of row and number of column also. Okay, so you can explicitly mention when you are creating the matrix that these are the number of rows should be there and these should be the number of column. Okay, so in take the example here that in matrix 1 to 8 are the values and the number of rows are 4 and number of columns are 2. Okay, if I run this and I assign this value here to this my mat. So my mat has a matrix which has 4 rows and 2 columns. Okay, but now if you give the wrong number of rows and wrong number of columns, it will show the error. Okay, let us assume that you are giving like this. Okay, so you are not mentioning the number of rows, you are mentioning that you want a number of columns only. Okay, so if you run like this, whenever you are creating a matrix in R, you have to remember that the data length should be the sum multiple or multiple of the number of columns. Okay, so if you see here, here 4 into 2 8 is there with the number of values. If I do here like if I have 4, this matrix will be created, or if I have 2 here, the matrix will also be created, or if I have 8, matrix will be created, or if I have 1, matrix will be created. But if I have value 7, this matrix will not be created. The same way if we do for rows, if I do like this, it won't be created, but as soon as you are doing like this, so here whenever you are creating a matrix, you have to remember that data length should be the multiple or some multiple of the number of rows or the number of columns. Okay, as we have seen in the list that we have to declare the names of the each element of the list. In the similar way, we can define the names of the rows and columns in the matrix also. So say for example, our my mat is already created. So if I run this, so this is our matrix. So there are no names are there. Okay, so what we can do is like whenever you have a data set and you can name it by using this function row names. So first we will check whether we have any row names to our matrix. So how we will do, we will use this row names, and if I put my mat and if I check the value, there is null. Okay, similarly if I do for columns and if I run this, null. Okay, So we can assign the row names and column names to the matrix. So let us assume that these four values are of the fourth of the authors. So I am assigning first, second, third, fourth. So this is where I have assigned, and then I'll assign the column names. So these are the column names. So now if I check the value of my mat, it will show that this is a matrix and it has two column names, pub1 and pub2, and these are the row names. Okay, and then you can do the analysis by accessing this particular element of a matrix. Okay, now if you want to access the particular element of a list, okay, so for that you have to mention the row number and the column number. Okay, say for example this is a matrix, and if you want to access this particular value, okay, the 5 value. So what you have to do here is you have to mention that this is a value of second row, and this is a, and the column number is second. So this is call number 1, this is call number 2, this is call number 3, this is row 1, this is row 2, this is row 3. Okay, so if I have to access the 5, I have to give the exact location that this is a second row and this is a second location. If I have to access the value 9, so I have to mention that this is a row 3, so 3 row, and the column is also 3. Okay, if I have to access the 7, how we will do? So we have to mention the third row and the column is 1. Now we will see this in R. So if I do like this, my mat, so this 6 is coming. So 6 is second row and second column. So this is the value. Okay, so this 6 is value. Or if I have to access the 8, what we have to do is my, so we have to access the 8. So 8 is in the second column and in the fourth row. So in the fourth row and the second column. If I do like this, 2 comma 4. So there is like it will show the error that there is no second row is there, but fourth column is not there. Only 2 column is there. Whenever you are accessing the particular value in the matrix, you must see how many number of rows you have, how many columns you have, and then where that particular value is located. Okay. Also, the format is that first you have to give the location of row, then you have to give the location of the column. If you reverse it, it will give the another value. Okay. Like say for example, if I do like this, first row, second column. So the first row, second column, this value is 5. But if I reverse it, if I reverse it, so this value is 2. So what it means is the second row, first column. So this is why you have to be very careful whenever you are accessing the element in a matrix. Okay. Now say for example you want to access the whole of the that particular row. Okay. So how you will do? So this particular row is accessed. Okay. So it gives the values of second row in all the columns. And similar way, if you have to access the column, you can do like this. So you are not mentioning the row number, you want all rows and the second column. If I run this, so this is the second column. Okay, 5 6 7 8. We'll say 5 6 7 8. If you want to access the all of the element of a matrix, okay, so what you can do, you can do simply this. So this is a just a equivalent to by saying like this my mat. Okay, so these are exactly the same, but you must give a try of accessing like this way also, because this is how we learn and this is how we do different process in our, like what are the other ways of doing the same thing. Okay, So this is about the matrix. Now let us discuss about the another data structure, that is a factor. So factor in R is used to handle the categorical data. So it is a type of data which is represented in the form of category instead of numeric numbers. Okay. So for example, this red, green, blue. Okay. So these are the categories of that particular data set. Okay. So this is very important whenever you are handling the any categorical data, and then you have to use this particular data structure. Okay. So during this whole course, we will be handling many of the categorical variables like the type of open access model. For example, green open access, diamond open access, then hybrid open access. So these are kind of a categories. Another example is like the document type publication, article, review, note, or editorial. So these are some of the kind of categorical data what we will be using in our analysis. Okay. So to create a factor in R, you have to use this factor function. Like we to create a data frame, we use data dot frame. To create a this list, we use this list function. Then to create a matrix, we use the matrix function. And the similar way to create a factor, we will be using the factor function. So if I do like this, so these are the three factors: green, gold, diamonds. And if I check the levels, so level basically the categories. What are the different categories we have created in this particular factor data? Let us take another example. If I do like this, and now if I check the levels of this, okay, basically it categorizes that there are three different values are there. That is green, gold, diamond. But here two times diamond is there, and also if we see the value, okay, so the values of this particular factor data, it has four values: green, gold, diamond, diamond. But the levels, the categories are diamond, gold, green. Okay, so this is how we can create a factor in R. Now if we convert this factor data as a numeric, let us see how it look like. So if we convert, it is showing that 321. Okay, so it assigned the numbers, that this is a third number, this is second number, and this is a first number. Okay, now if we check the class of this uh, factor data, it will show that this is a factor. Okay, this is how the categorical data is stored in R. So we will see during the analysis more about that how we will be putting different operation on this factor data. Let us now see our last data structure type, that is array. So array is another data structure that is used in R. If you remember that vector, okay, vector is a kind of a array which have the one dimensional. Then if you see matrices, matrices is a kind of a array which has a two dimensional. So array is a kind of data structure that have multiple dimension. Okay, so whenever you have to create a array, you have to mention the dimension, that these are the number of dimension this array has. Okay, so if you take the example that I am creating a array of one dimension. Okay, so if I do like this, and if I run it like this, and if I check the value, so it's a kind of the way we have created a vector. Okay, so it's kind of a array of one dimension. Now similar way, if we create a array of two dimension, this, and now if I check the value of this, if you remember, like when we have created the matrix, it is the same kind of example. This is also an array of two dimension. if we want to create a array of 3 dimension, okay, so we can create like this. So if I run this, and now if I check the value, so this is a 3 dimensional array. So so this is how we can create an array, and also we can do multiple operations on these array. But during our course, we will be mainly focused on the vector and data frame. Although some of the like functions gives the output in the form of list, at that time we will see that how to manipulate those lists, how to unleash those lists to create a data frame. Okay, so this is all about the data structures in R. So in the previous lecture, I have discussed about the two of the data structure, that is vector and data frame. And in this particular lecture, I have discussed about the other four data structure, that is list, then matrices, vector and array. I request you all to practice all these 6 data structure by using the code. I will be sharing all the code, whatever I have discussed. In the next lecture, I will be discussing about the packages and help, and that will be our last lecture of this particular week. Thank you. See you in the next lecture.